Here's something I whipped up a while ago, brothers and sisters, and tried after I drew it to kind of scan it in and give it some shade and some color with the grays, and didn't turn out as good as I would have liked, but oh well. I just figured because of the content of this chapter it'd be a good picture to have in here. One Piece, chapter 182, Roar.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the tantalizing tale of One Piece. Our last chapter saw us with the Straw Hats enacting what seemed to be a very clever plan, allowing Vivi and Carue, of course, to be able to break free. And they kind of pulled the okey doke on the Baroque Works agents, and were able to lure them after all of themselves. The Straw Hats did, is what I mean to say. So the chapter ended with Vivi basically just kind of just praying to God and saying, "Oh, thank you so much," giving thanks for what they did, and her and Carue heading out towards the south, where the rebels are charging north from to Alubarna, and they're about 2 million strong. So that's where the chapter ended. That's where the chapter picks up, and unfortunately, there is not a whole lot to tell in this chapter, so it should be a little bit quicker of a review by my standards. The chapter starts out with, and that's not for lack of action or anything else, just the content itself that was more action heavy than actual dialogue or things happening, type of event heavy, So everybody is charging for Alubarna, and Vivi is standing out there in the middle of, the desert, in between Alubarna and the rebel forces, which are bearing down on them. Now, keep in mind that the rebel forces, it's loud. They're clomping on horses. So you have that in your ears, and then of course you have all the dust that's getting kicked up as you're riding across the desert. And this army is supposed to be 2 million strong. So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of horses, a lot of people charging. And not to say that every one of them are on horseback, but certainly there's this huge force, and there's this one little girl basically, this frail female standing out in the middle of the desert. So with Carue, so she tells Carue, "Hey, don't worry about it. You don't got to stand with me, And he's kind of sitting there like he goes and he just kind of grits his teeth and whatnot, like, "Don't worry about it, I'm good." so she's yelling, "Koza!" And she's trying, "Stop, hear me out, just hear me out." And she's trying to explain that this whole battle is a ruse, it's a trick, So that really is what half of the chapter is her trying to go and yell and get somebody to listen, and they don't. People start coming flying by. There's dust kicking up everywhere, and there's a couple of times where Koza's like, "Hey, did you see somebody standing out there?" And one of his guys is like, "No, there's crazy. Nobody be standing out there in the middle of the desert. What the hell, So right as it looks like he might actually go and see her, or maybe he hears something, I think it is, because there's a couple of times too where he thinks he hears her, yelling Koza. All of a sudden, a cannonball comes and boom, almost hits them. It explodes and it winds up knocking some guys to the side and everything. And it came from Alubarna, So and he's like, "Oh, they're firing on us, and just trying to add salt to the wound, Well, then it goes and it shows Chaka up there, and he's just like, "What the hell? I didn't order anybody to fire," And you get the guy who is operating the cannon. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, my hand slipped." And then we go and we see, and the guy's like, and they make it so obvious because they go and they show that he's got a Baroque Works, patch or whatever on his clothing. So this is one of the plants that they have, one of the guys that they have planted in there, undercover in the Royal Army. One of the people that have been, orchestrating these little things to obviously make the country turn in on itself. So, and he saw that maybe there was a chance of things, basically just wanted to get the tension even higher, get everybody going and get everybody really mad and ready and rearing to fight is what it was. So then we go and we see, again, just it's kind of sad because, everybody's just kind of blowing by Vivi over there, and she's not even worried about getting trampled, of course. She just wants to save everyone and have no one fight, no one get hurt, no one get killed. And she winds up going and going to get trampled, and it looks like Carue goes and jumps in front to take the blow and to save her. And as everybody's just kind of, like, again, clomping on by on their horses, and they start attacking the city, and then, of course, we got, all of the, the Royal Army, they're like, "Oh, man, we got to go, and we got to fight," and then everybody's just clashing. It's like a big Braveheart battle where everybody starts clashing, there's guys fighting and jumping down from the walls and shooting from higher positions, and everybody's attacking each other, right? So So then Vivi goes and we go and we see back out to her, right? And we see her laying there with Carue kind of with his wing over her, you know? And she's like, and Carue's messed up, man. I mean, he looks like he's foobarred, you know? And he's fucked up beyond all recognition for those of you that haven't been following, you know, my reviews for that long. And he is. He's bloodied and beaten. And she's like, oh, you stepped in front. You protected me, you know, from getting trampled. And so then we go and we see out of nowhere, all of a sudden up on a horse is Usopp, right? And Usopp's like, hey, come on, Vivi, you know, I'll help you. And she's like, oh, okay, Usopp, whatever, you know. And then it goes and it shows, and it takes us to kind of the end of the chapter almost, and this was kind of the cool part of it. It goes and it then goes and flips back, and at first I thought maybe this is a flashback, but it goes back to inside the city, right? And it's Usopp and Eyelashes, and he's talking about how, you know, they got beat up and blah, 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 and basically, you know, Mr. 2 beat the shit out of him, you know? And he's reporting to Sanji, you know, and he's like, this is what my report is, you know. Shortly after, you know, they figured out it was us and blah blah, we got our asses kicked and barely escaped with our lives, type of thing. So Sanji's like, and again, I'm thinking this is just kind of telling what happened 15 minutes ago, type of deal, you know. So Sanji's going and he's just like, okay, so you're telling me that you know that they got away, or maybe it was Zoro that I was talking to. I thought it was Sanji, but anyway, so he's like, so you're telling me that they got away, they beat you up, and that Mr. 2 got away. And he's like, oh, man, this is real bad, you know. And we see that, of course, Usopp and Eyelashes, the camel, they're bloodied, they're beaten, they got beat up. So now we start to think, oh, shit. So this is Mr. 2 that's actually trying to get her, right? So then it goes and it takes us back to Vivi sitting there, you know, and she's, of course, still hunched over Carue, you know, who's bleeding and looking half dead. And the Usopp lookalike, Mr. 2 Bon Clay over there, you know, he's like... He goes and he's like, oh, come on, just go ahead, just leave that duck. He's done for, let's go. And that's what tips Vivi off, and Vivi's like, that duck. And then she goes and thinks back, and she remembers that Usopp, you know, and Carue, he's like, he calls them by name, you know, and they hang out, they eat food, they steal food from the ship together, you know what I mean? They're buddies, right? So she's like, this can't be Usopp. And then she's like, how do I know it's you, you know? So he goes and he pulls out his left arm and he shows this band around his arm, but it's a white band, right? And the band that they have, if you remember, was a black band, you know? And it is what it is. So that definitely tips her off, and then she knows for sure that that's what's going on. So she goes and Carue jumps up because he knows what's going on, and whatever he's got left in him, he goes and she's able to jump on him and go and take off. And then he's just like, and then Mr. 2 Bon Clay is like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what gave it away. You know, he's like, they told me, Mr. Zero told me that they were all wearing, you know, these bands on their arm or whatever, you know, a piece of fabric or whatever on their arm. Of course, he failed to mention what actual color they were. And then, of course, it tipped her off initially by him not knowing the name of the duck, you know, Carue, that they had spent, you know, so much time on this journey together on. So really a very, very cool chapter, although action-packed, and it just happened very quickly. You know, so that's how things end off, is him kind of like, I'll get you anyway, and he kind of comes at him with this swan dash or whatever it is. And that's how the chapter ends up. So we don't know if she's going to get captured, if someone's going to step in and help her. We know, of course, that Sanji and company inside the city, you know, far enough away to where they're not immediate help. They know what's going on, you know, or assume that they will know what's going on. But I wonder who's going to certainly come to her rescue. So ultimately, I guess that'll be my chapter question, you know, and again, I mean, don't worry about it. If it's spoiler ridden, you don't need to even bother answering and telling me it's spoiler ridden if you don't want to. This is really just the comments section. I unfortunately, because of the troll nonsense and because of just in general not wanting to be spoiled, I've had to look at the comment sections less and less, you know, certainly getting things, you know, kind of looked at and approved by my partner in crime with this is helpful. But ultimately, I'm just not able to interact as much because of the fact that there's so many things that could be spoilers. So when I ask these questions, it's really just for interaction amongst everyone, amongst the community, and amongst you brothers and sisters. So who do you think is going to come to to the rescue of Vivi, or is she going to be self-reliant and be able to take care of herself? I also had forgot to mention, too, that as she was, you know, kind of bloodied and broken and beaten, you know, Carue, of course, was able to protect her. But as she got up, she's like, I don't care. I may have not stopped it right here. I failed, but I'm not going to give up. And that was her whole thing, was that I learned from being on the ship with the Straw Hats to never give up, to never give in, to always keep pushing and fighting for what you believe in. So that was really a good lesson, I thought, and ultimately I think is just a real good real good thing to have for the series, because when you think about it, it really is a good thing to live by. If you think about a good motto or quote to live by, is to never give up, and to always be able to fight for and push for what it is that you want. So leave your answer to the question that I asked about, of course, who's going to save Vivi in the comments down below, brothers and sisters. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like buttons, if you think that, well, there's only one like button, if you think that I deserve it. And subscribe if you have not done so already. We'll look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation.
I had something all planned out to say, but I completely forgot about it when I looked at this picture of this handsome devil right here. So, thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you.